Book of Heaven, Volume 4. 4th to the 15th of January 1901, page 50 to 55. January 4, 1901. The unhappy state of a soul without God. After going through most bitter days of privation and of disturbance, I felt a mystical hell within me. Without Jesus, all my passions came out to the light and, each one casting its own darkness, obscured me in such a way that I no longer knew where I was. How unhappy is the state of a soul without God! It is enough to say that, without God, the soul, while still living, feels hell within her. Such was my state. I felt my soul tortured by infernal pains. Who can say what I went through? So as not to make it too long, I move on. Then, this morning, having received communion, as I was at the summit of my affliction, I felt our Lord move within me. In seeing His image, I wanted to look to see whether it was of wood or alive in flesh. I looked, and I saw it was the crucified alive in flesh, who, looking at me, told me, "If my image within you were made of wood, the love would be only apparent, because only true and sincere love, united to mortification, makes me be reborn alive, crucified in the heart of one who loves me." On seeing the Lord, I would have wanted to withdraw from His presence, so bad did I see myself, but He continued, saying, "Where do you want to go? I am light, and wherever you go, my light invests you everywhere." At the presence of Jesus, at His light, at His voice, my passions disappeared. I myself don't know where they went. I remained like a little girl, and I returned inside myself, completely changed. May everything be for the glory of God and for the good of my soul. January 5, 1901. The humanity of Jesus was made on purpose to obey, and to destroy disobedience. Luisa refreshes Jesus. As I was outside of myself, I saw the confessor placing the intention of the crucifixion. I was afraid to submit myself, but Jesus told me, "What can I do? I cannot help obeying, because my humanity was made on purpose to obey, and to destroy disobedience." This virtue is so grafted within me, that it can be said that obedience is nature in me, and the distinction dearest and most glorious to me. So much so, that if my humanity did not have this of its own, I would abhor it, and would never have united myself to it. You, then, want to disobey? You can do it, but you will do it yourself. I won't. All confused in seeing a God so obedient, I said, "I too want to obey," and I submitted myself, and Jesus shared with me the pains of the cross. After this, He transported me outside of myself, and blessed Jesus gave me a kiss. As He was doing this, a bitter breath came out, and He was in the act of wanting to pour His bitternesses. But He did not do it, because He wanted to be told by me to do it. Immediately I said, "Do you want some reparation? Let us do it together. In this way my reparations, united to yours, will have the effects of yours, for if I do them on my own I believe they will disgust you more." So I took His hand, dripping with blood, and kissing it, I recited the Laudate Dominum, praise the Lord, with the Gloria Patri, glory be, Jesus one part, I the other, to repair for the many evil works that are committed, placing the intention of praising Him as many times for as many offenses as He receives because of evil works. How moving it was to see Jesus praying! Then I continued to do the same to the other hand, placing the intention of praising Him as many times for as many offenses as He receives because of sins of causes. Then, His feet, with the intention of praising Him as many times for as many evil steps and as many wrong paths which are covered, even under the appearance of piety and sanctity. Lastly, His heart, with the intention of praising Him for as many times as the human heart does not palpitate, does not love, and does not desire God. My beloved Jesus seemed all refreshed by these reparations done together with Him, but He was not yet content. It seemed He wanted to pour, so I said to Him, "Lord, if you want to pour, I pray you to do it." So He poured His bitternesses, and then He added, "My daughter, how much men offend me, but the time will come when I will chastise them in such a way that many little worms will come out, which will produce clouds of mosquitoes that will render them greatly oppressed. Then, afterwards, the Pope will come out." And why will the Pope come out? And he will come out to console the peoples, because, oppressed, tired, crushed, betrayed by so many lies, they themselves will look for the harbor of truth, and all humiliated, they will ask the Holy Father to come into their midst to free them from so many evils and place them in the harbor of safety. And I, Lord, will this perhaps happen after the wars you have spoken about the other times? And he, yes. And I, how I wish I could come before these things happen. And he, and where would I go to stay then? Ah, Lord, there are so many good souls in whom you can stay, such that in comparing myself to them, oh, how bad I see myself. But not paying attention to me, Jesus disappeared, and I returned inside myself. January 6, 1901. Jesus communicates himself to the three magi through love, through beauty and through power. As I was outside of myself, I seemed to see the moment when the holy magi arrived at the grotto of Bethlehem. As they arrived in the presence of the baby, he pleased to let the rays of his divinity shine externally, communicating himself to the magi in three ways, through love, through beauty and through power, in such a way that they remained enraptured and engrossed in the presence of little baby Jesus. So much so, that if the Lord had not withdrawn the rays of his divinity internally again, they would have remained there forever, unable to move any more. Then, as the baby withdrew his divinity, the holy magi returned into themselves. They stirred themselves, stupefied, in seeing an excess of love so great, because through that light the Lord had let them understand the mystery of the Incarnation. Then they stood up and offered their gifts to the Queen Mother, and she spoke at length with them, but I am unable to say everything she said. I can only remember that she inculcated into them, strongly, not only their own salvation, but also taking to heart the salvation of their peoples, having no fear even to lay down their lives to obtain the intent. After this, I withdrew inside myself and I found myself together with Jesus. He wanted me to tell him something, but I saw myself so bad and confused that I would not dare to tell him anything. Seeing that I was not saying anything, he himself continued to speak about the holy magi, telling me, by having communicated myself to the magi in three ways, I obtained three effects for them, because I never communicate myself to souls uselessly. Rather, they always receive some profit for themselves. So, as I communicated myself through love, they obtained detachment from themselves, through beauty, they obtained contempt for earthly things, and through power, their hearts remained all bound to me, and they obtained the bravery to lay down their blood and lives for me. Then he added, and you, what do you want? Tell me, do you love me? How would you want to love me? Not knowing what to say, as my confusion increased, I said, Lord, I would want nothing but you, and if you say to me, do you love me? I have no words to be able to manifest it. I can only say that I feel this passion that no one may be able to prevail over me in loving you, and that I should be the first in loving you, above everyone, and no one may be able to surpass me. But this does not content me yet. In order to be content, I would want to love you with your own love, so that I may be able to love you as you love yourself. Ah, yes. Only then would my concerns about loving you cease. Content, one could say, with my nonsense. Jesus clasped me so tightly to himself, that I could see myself transmuted in him, inside and out, and he communicated part of his love to me. After this, I returned inside myself, and it seemed to me that for as much love as I give, so much do I possess my good, and if I love him little, I possess him little. January 9, 1901. Jesus wants her united with him, like a sun's ray which receives from it life, heat and splendor. This morning I felt all oppressed and crushed, so much so, that I went in search of relief. My only good made me wait a long time for his coming. Then, on coming, he told me, my daughter, did I not take your passions, miseries and weaknesses upon myself for love of you? Would you not want to take those of others upon yourself for love of me? Then he added, what I want is that you be always united with me, like a sun's ray which remains always fixed in the center of the sun, and which receives from it life, heat and splendor. Suppose that a ray could depart from the center of the sun, what would become of it? Immediately after leaving, it would lose life, light and heat, and would return to darkness, reducing itself to nothing. Such is the soul. As long as she remains united with me, in my center, it can be said that she is like a sun's ray which lives, receives life from the sun, and goes wherever the sun wants. In sum, it remains at the complete disposal and at the will of the sun. If then she distracts herself and disunites from me, there she is, all darkness, cold, and without feeling within herself that supernal spur of divine life." Having said this, he disappeared. January 15, 1901. Jesus tells her that she forms his greatest martyrdom. "Since in the past days my beloved Jesus made himself seen as somehow indignant with the world, this morning, not seeing him come, I kept thinking to myself, who knows whether he is not coming because he wants to send some chastisement? And what have I done wrong? Because he wants to send chastisements, he does not deign to come to me. How nice, that while he wants to punish others, he has me get the greatest of chastisements, which is the privation of him." Now, while I was saying this and other nonsense, my lovable Jesus made himself seen for just a little, and told me, "My daughter, you form the greatest martyrdom for me, because when I have to send some chastisement I cannot show myself to you, since you bind me everywhere and do not want me to do anything. And as I do not come, you deafen me with your complaints, with your laments and expectations. So much so, that while I am occupied with chastising, I am forced to think about you, to hear you, and my heart is lacerated in seeing you in your painful state of my privation." In fact, the most painful martyrdom is the martyrdom of love, and the more two persons love each other, the more painful those pains become, which arise, not from others, but from between themselves. Therefore be quiet, be calm, and do not want to increase my pains through your pains. He disappeared, and I was left all mortified, thinking that I formed the martyrdom of my dear Jesus, and that in order not to make him suffer too much, when he does not come I must remain quiet. But who can make this sacrifice? It seems impossible to me, and I will be forced to continue martyring each other.